Hi, welcome to the Labor Force Participation and Occupational Segregation lecture of the Gender Economics course, which is a course introducing the feminist economics. This lecture series is prepared for the Middlesex Technical University Northern Cyprus campus, and this is part one of this lecture. At the beginning, we have a video, which is a nice video. It discusses many issues that are related to the labor force participation of the women in Bangladesh. It's a traditional Islamic country where there could be some cultural constraints as well as economic constraints and tradition, basically. So you can watch the video and you can think about how all of these things are related. What we will see in this lecture, they are very much related. I should maybe say that this lecture is the beginning of the three lectures that follow one after another, which will discuss the labor market status, of the woman. The last lecture, which will be on the poverty and the time use surveys, which is kind of like an independent topic, although it has some connections with labor market also, but it's not exactly a labor market topic. Anyway, in this case, actually, we will look at the general position of the women in the labor market, especially their participation and the jobs they are likely to work on, and also the qualifications of the woman. The characteristics that are that belong to themselves, which might actually shape their labor market status. Later, we will also see potential discrimination. Potential mistreatment they might meet in the labor market, despite their characteristics also. But here we will see the characteristics, the way their characteristics themselves shape their labor market status, or may shape the labor market status, how much they might explain the labor market status. We have five articles, and basically three of them are actually three texts. Five texts. The three of them are from the book Economics of Man, Woman, Man, and Work of Blau, Winkler, and Ferber. The chapter 4 is actually that over-encompassing chapter, which includes many elements of the labor market participation of the woman, like the trends data, and then the theory, and then it adds to the theory, the practical reasons which explain the data, and lastly, they also include historical analysis. I won't include the historical analysis, but I will include the other aspects of the Blau, Ferber, and Winkler into today's lecture. But you are pretty much welcome to also look at the history. The other two chapters, one of them is actually looking to the occupational differences. The occupations men are concentrated on, occupation women are concentrated, which is pretty much a kind of data analysis type of chapter, although there are some arguments also there. And last chapter is chapter 6, is on the human capital model, the qualifications of the woman which might be responsible for women's status in the labor market. And it's also a nice discussion. Actually, we will also look at chapter 7, discrimination, where we will see, potential mistreatment of women also from their book, following the footsteps of their book. The last two articles are actually, one is on the Turkish labor market conditions, the other one is on the Cyprus. The last one is pretty small, but I still want to give some data that was available on the Northern Cyprus case, since we are in the Northern Cyprus. And Güvenli Saneliler is actually, she was one of the also guests who will speak in the economy and policy seminar series. If if we didn't have this corona crisis and cancellation of all the seminars. Anyway, let's start. As I said, the first chapter is based on the neoclassical preference model, and they explain how with this model how different conditions women face actually has increased the labor force participation of women since World War II. And there is theoretical explanation, data theoretical explanation, and then, as I said before, kind of listing different factors, and then a full historical explanation, which we will not see. The last part we will not see. Oh, the part we will see is already very long, actually. So this is the basic data, and you can see that the labor force participation of women has increased. This is up to 2007, from 40% to 60%. It is a 20% increase, and most of it has happened actually between 1970s and maybe 1990. So 1980s and 1970s had been a great era, for the female increase in the women's participation. And then we had also a small decrease in the male labor force participation. Why? This doesn't mean necessarily the men are more staying at home and becoming home dads. That doesn't necessarily mean that. That might mean that more men might retire early or may go to college and not work, because maybe the conditions of their families have improved, or they are able to accumulate wealth, or maybe the state social security is helping them. So this is the basic data, and here you can see the data in more detail, percentage of in numbers, basically. All the way back. This data goes all the way back to the 1890s. So it has in 1890s. It started all the way from the 18.2%. In 1920s, it is 20.7%. In 1930, 23.6%. A kind of 5% increase. In World War II, it has increased to 35.8%, but it has fallen back to 31.5%. Lower, but still higher than the pre-war case. And then it has stayed all the way up to 1970s, 37.7%. And then in 1970, it has become 43.3%. 1980, 51.5%, and 1990, 57.5%. These numbers are kind of different from the previous case. It is looking to the civilian population, individuals that are older than 14 years old. So, 14 years old probably, the other one contains people about 18, I guess. Do they write it? Not here. You can check it. But the numbers are, actually numbers are not different. Numbers are similar to each other. So actually, when you look at this graph, you can see a steady increase from 1890 on throughout the 20th century. The conventional story was actually in 1970s and in 90s. It was a revolution. So women suddenly appeared more in the labor force. But this data shows that you almost have a gradual increase. And that's interesting. And here you can see the age distribution of the participation. This is 1940. So most of the women who participate in the labor force were in early 20s, maybe late teens. And then the labor force participation was falling from 50% in 40s all the way to 30%, and then to 25%. In 1960s, the picture was more like a double peak. So in the early teens, you have a peak, and then you have a fall to 35% at the age 25 to 34. That's the age when the woman had children. and then you have another peak at 50% at the age 45, 50s basically. So the woman may be leaving the labor force when they had child and then rejoin the labor force. And then in 1980s you have maybe a remnant of double peak, not a double peak, but you have a peak and then a flattening curve and then a decrease. So the women were participating mostly between the ages 18 and 54, and the peak was kind of 70% participation. And in 2007, actually, now the peak is at the age 25 and 54, and basically at their peak, the labor force participation has become 75%. So you see that actually, even though there was a decrease at a certain age, probably because of the motherhood penalty, the effect of that is actually decreasing, at least in terms of labor force participation. Maybe not in terms of the wage rate and the full-time work. Basically, we should note that basically. So now we should come to the model. This is the basic model of the labor force that is measuring labor force participation. This might also measure the time of hours worked, but I will basically describe the labor force participation case. Maybe I can also describe a little bit. I want a little bit on how we can measure the hours worked. So it's very similar to the indifference curve model. Basically, however, instead of the actual budget you divide between the commodities, you have your full-time leisure time that is available for you. That's the time you have minus the necessary activities. If you sleep for 6 hours and then spend 3 hours for the activities to stay healthy, basically subsistence activities like cleaning yourself, cooking, things like that. In that case, 6 plus 8 is 6 plus 3 is 9. 24 minus 9 is 15. You have 15 hours, which you can spend either for leisure or labor market work. And so that's your budget, kind of. You might also have a fixed amount of income in addition to the to your labor market income, which might be rent, which might be state money given to you for assistance of a kind. It might be profits, it might be interest rate, it might be your husband's income or wife's income. Whatever it is, it provides you as initial endowments. So you can either have 15 hours and that additional income you have, or you can spend your all leisure time for labor market income and add to that initial income your wage income. In that case, the total number of hours you work, 15 hours, times the hourly wage will be your additional income. So if that hourly wage is $30, for example, in that case, $450 will be your hourly, your daily income, plus let's say you have $50 in additional income. In that case, you could have either $500 or $50 plus 15 hours, basically. And indifference curves actually show the utility level of the individuals for fixed income levels and the leisure levels. This line is the budget line. It shows you all possible combinations of income and leisure. And here you have 15 hours and your basic income. Here basic income, non-labor market income, and here you have labor market income plus non-labor market income but no leisure. And here are all other possible combinations. And having with these indifference curves and the budget line, we are able to find whether our individual will work or not, and basically whether how many hours he or she will work. But this we will see in the next part. See you in the next part.